Hello class, my final paper and presentation is on George Kelly. And I'm Marcy K. Corbett with Colorado Christian University. George Kelly was born in 1905. He was the only child of an ex-minister father and a school teacher mother. Both his parents had kind of a pioneer spirit. They moved around quite a bit, which caused George to attend several different schools, and he was homeschooled and tutored. They didn't stay in any one spot for too long. At the age of 16, he attended a Quaker institution called Friends University for 3 years and then transferred to Park College, where he graduated with a degree in physics and math. He later studied at the University of Kansas, where he earned his master's degree in educational psychology and a minor in labor relations. He taught at a labor college in Minneapolis, coached dramatics, and was involved in intercollegiate debate, and developed a reputation of a winning orator. After studying in Edinburgh, Scotland, where he first became interested in psychology, he returned to Iowa, where he obtained his doctorate degree in 1931 from the State University of Iowa. And then 2 days after that, he married Gladys Thompson, an English teacher, who he met while working at a junior college in Sheldon, Iowa. When George Kelly started his work career, he worked in Fort Hays, Nebraska, where he opened traveling clinics. This was during the Depression, and there was a great need for psychological care for a lot of people who were depressed. It was the Great Depression, and right after the big Dust Bowl or the drought of the Midwestern states. And Kelly desperately wanted to help, so he formed these traveling clinics that were actually funded by the state legislature because of the great need. And then during World War II, Kelly accepted a position with the U.S. Navy's Aviation Department, and he selected and trained the best pilots. After the war, Kelly worked at Ohio State University for 9 years, and he held the director of clinical psychology there. And during this time, he held the position of president of consulting and president of the clinical divisions at the American Psychological Association. His most important work, The Psychology of Personal Constructs, was published in 1955. It was in 2 volumes. And Kelly was actually invited by Abraham Maslow and briefly held the position of Distinguished Professional Chair in Theoretical Psychology at Brandeis University before his sudden death in 1967. Some main contributions of George Kelly. He was definitely a man before his time, and he had a pioneering spirit that he must have inherited from his parents. His optimistic, hopeful, and pragmatic attitude and ideas were very much against the grain of psychology practices of the time. Although Kelly respected Freud and other psychologists, he very much rejected the idea of psychoanalysis and finding the root cause for human behavior. For Kelly, an individual's behavior or construct is unique to himself and a result of how he perceives and processes the world. So the traditional psychological approaches broke a person down into different components. They focused on the emotional, cognitive, behavioral, or physiological aspects. Kelly believed that this put people in a box and causes them, and viewed them as being reactive versus a dynamic, fluid, ever-changing person. And then Kelly wanted to come up with a theory that encompassed the whole person. And something that encompassed an individual's whole uniqueness. Here's a quote from Paris and Epting in 2015, page 188. This is kind of Kelly's viewpoint. What really matters is what things mean to us and how else we might look at ourselves, others, and the world if we only gave ourselves the chance. In offering to psychology this rather simple and elegant change of direction, Kelly made a contribution so important and profound that for the most part we have yet to catch up with it. One of, or probably the main contribution from George Kelly was his personal construct theory. In it, Kelly believed humans are scientists by nature and should be treated as such because a goal of a scientist is to reduce uncertainty, which is also the goal of humans. Both scientists and people have theories. But whereas scientists create theories with which they attempt to predict future events, non-scientists create construct systems to predict future events. If either a scientific theory of a personal construct of a personal construct system is effective, it adequately predicts the future and thereby reduces uncertainty. And both the theories and the constructs are tested empirically, because they are bounced against reality and revised and adapted until they adequately predict the future and hence reduce uncertainty. In other words, we have a choice in the matter. In constructive alternativism is basically the choice that we have in the constructs that we use in adapting to everyday life. We are constantly engineering our own reality with our constructs. However, we are using these constructs to navigate and use reality in the most efficient and productive way versus merely just trying to find the truth. We try different things for different purposes in order to anticipate what might happen as a result in the future, not necessarily to find the truth, but to experiment with consequences. Whatever truth or reality may turn out to be, we are able to see only as far as our own imaginations and experiments in living will take us. That was a quote by Paris and Epting, 2015, page 185. Therefore, no matter what we try, there are always different possibilities and choices that may yield better or worse results. We won't know until we try. This means that people can view and interpret events in almost an infinite number of ways. Deconstructing them is an individual matter. And here's a quote from George Kelly. We take the stand that there are always some alternative constructions available to choose among in dealing with the world. No one needs to paint himself into a corner. No one needs to be completely hemmed in by circumstances. No one needs to be the victim of his biography. George Kelly didn't really like psychoanalysis, so he came up with different ways of therapy. When Kelly first started in the workforce, it was during the Great Depression, like I said earlier, and he desperately wanted to help the great number of troubled people. His training in experimental psychology did not help him accomplish this, but his lack of training in clinical psychology did. With his pragmatic attitude, Kelly began experimenting with a variety of therapy approaches and soon discovered that there wasn't one universal one that always did the trick. He discovered that anything that caused his clients to view themselves or their problem differently improved the situation. This belief that psychological problems are perceptual problems brought Kelly to the approach that the therapist's job is to help the client view, and construct things differently. The upset is the perception of the problem. Change the perception and you solve the problem. Kelly also understood that each person's perception is their own reality and therefore their own truth. Put simply, Kelly approaches each person with the intention of giving credit to what that person has to say, rather than a position of doubt or suspicion. What each person has to say is their own truth. Perception is reality, and reality is individual truth. In conclusion, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. I chose George Kelly because when I was reading the text on humanistic third force psychology, I was riveted when I read about George Kelly and his theories. I relate so much to his optimistic, mind over matter, and pragmatic outlook on life. Kelly embraced change and understood that adapting and learning from life, in other words, construing, is what makes the world go round. His theories align with my attitude towards life in that life is what we make it and how we take it. We choose our reality. We choose our happiness. And I will close with this quote from George Kelly. What I am saying is that it is not so much what man is that counts as it is what he ventures out to make himself. To make the leap, he must do more than disclose himself. He must risk a certain amount of confusion. Then, as soon as he does catch a glimpse of a different kind of life, he needs to find some way of overcoming the paralyzing moment of threat. For this is the instant when he wonders what he really is, whether he is what he just was, or is what he is about to be. And here are my references. Thank you.